Yo, what's going on, guys? And we're hearing that the Warriors asked Draymond Green to mentor Jonathan Kuminga as a condition of his new contract. So, when Draymond Green signed his new 4-year, $100 million contract with the Warriors last June, Joe Lacob asked him to serve as a mentor for Jonathan Kuminga as an unwritten part of the deal. Now, before we start today's video, I want to hear your thoughts down below. Obviously, hit that like and subscribe button. I work for Hoops Hype USA Today's Hoops Hype as a journalist, and I do this on the side just for fun. But let's get right into it, and I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe this? And if you don't realize, Jonathan Kuminga this season as a basketball player has jumped. He has taken the metaphorical leap from being a guy who last year in his second season only averaged 10 points a game to this year as a starter, because I know obviously if you look at his stats as a starter, it's not going to look as impactful. But this season as a starter, he has averaged 18 points, almost 17.6, 5.5 rebounds, 3 assists in 39 games. And he's just a deadeye, okay? And I think that's the biggest thing with him is he's that second scorer that they've needed since, obviously, Klay Thompson has become this off-the-bench guy. And Jonathan Kuminga as a starter is shooting 53.5% from the field. He is shooting 30% from three, but he's a guy who grabs boards, plays multiple positions, and just a bona fide stud. And if you guys didn't know, last night Draymond Green had his 18th double-double with under 10 points. He's the only active player with more than 10. For me, what I think this is, what we're hearing from Draymond Green, Joe said, quote, "I know you're going to play and lead and all that, but I need one more thing." He said, "I need you to take JK under your wing," end quote. Draymond Green recalled to Kendra Andrews of ESPN. He then said, quote, "I said, you got my word. To me, that was a condition of the contract," end quote. During Green's suspension, he focused on watching Jonathan Kuminga. Draymond Green noticed that Jonathan Kuminga needed to attack defenses by using his speed and athleticism on drives to the paint. Basically saying he needs to get downhill more often because he's an absolute monster at it. And if I we'll pull up some stats about Jonathan Kuminga real quickly after we finish this. But the next quote we heard was, quote, he can always jump and get himself out of trouble. Nobody else is going to be up there with you. Most of us, we got to find angles and different things to score. But if you're in trouble with any of these, just jump. Him watching the games at home, it was him watching film that Draymond Green was saying as his advice to Kuminga. Okay, and I kind of forgot to say end quote there, but after the just jump thing is when he said end quote. But Kuminga said that Draymond Green watching film and seeing who he was actually helped him understand Kuminga more. And if you guys aren't stat guys, here are a little bit of or if you are stat guys, here are some stats for both parties to help shore up. So basically, Jonathan Kuminga's usage rate of about 21%. This year's at 23%, but for his career is at 21%. So the way he touches the ball in his hands has always been there. But he's a guy that with more and more time, he's clearly been just a better player all around. So let me pull up some stats just about his shooting frequencies. He's a guy who this year is shooting 56.4% as an effective field goal percentage. And at his position as a forward, he's shooting 46% at the rim, which is 87th percentile. So he's one of the best players there. Not only that, he is hitting his mid-range, his short mid shots, which are at 31%, which is just inside the mid-range area, which is really good for his position. And it's he's taking them at a very low volume, but when he does shoot them, he hits them at a high rate. And again, his three-point shot is his worst shot, but he's actually a pretty decent mid-range shooter, which in the playoffs is something that you need. And for me, when you look at him, he's a guy that I'm going to have to cut this, but this is me cutting. All right, so this year, Jonathan Kuminga is shooting 46% of his shots at the rim. 31% of them are at the short mid-range, but we're going to put them all together. 37% of his shots are at the mid-range, 46% at the rim, 37% in the mid-range, and then the rest of his shots are 17% from the three-point range. Now, he's hitting 74% of his shots at the rim. Yes, that's insane. Now, his mid-ranges, he's hitting 42% of them. Absolutely absurd. So that mid-range scoring is very, very good and something to look at. Not only that, his ability on defense is, I'm not sitting here going to say he's like otherworldly at defense, but his metrics defensively, he's serviceable. And he's a guy who isn't going to be a turnstile, would be put on an island and absolutely exposed. So at this point with Jonathan Kuminga, I think there's a reason why Draymond Green took him under the wing and why we've seen this improvement. He's improved leaps and bounds. So for me, I think we're seeing the guy with some size, athleticism, and poise to be a really good player at his position. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. If you guys agree with me, it's definitely a great sight to see how Jonathan Kuminga has developed. But yeah.